So if you've found yourself being threatened with a protective order, or you get a temporary protective order, or a protective order has been enforced and it's 2 years, you need to understand something that is really, really important. It is something that can get you arrested, thrown in jail immediately. Anybody who's on that protective order, whether it's your kids, your ex, different family members, and so on, whether it's just or unjust, if you were to make an Instagram comment on one of their posts, if you were to say hi in a grocery store and wave to them while they're waving at you, wanting to say hi to you, if you're invited to something, guaranteed that there will be no problems. If any law enforcement hears about it, you'll be arrested, no questions asked. In most states, it could be different in different states, but that means that, let's say, if I have a protective order against me and the mother of my kids put it against me, and she invites me to a birthday party and I show up, and the police are there and they find out who I am and they run my name, I'm immediately arrested. But more commonly, what will happen is somebody will call the police saying that you're there, or they feel threatened, or they thought it was safe to invite you and they made the mistake of doing that, and then they felt that you were somehow dangerous. You will be arrested. You'll be arrested and put in jail. And if it is on a Friday night, you'll be in jail all weekend in most states and in most counties. This is something that you need to understand. And if you have a temporary protective order, meaning a judge has said, I think this is good enough to rule upon, I'm going to sign it, and in 30 days or 29 days or 21 days, we're going to revisit it in a hearing in court, that arrest is going to look really bad for you. You're most likely going to want to argue that arrest, and it's going to gum things up. It's going to make things impossible to argue. You only have probably 20 or 30 minutes in front of that judge, or 20 or 30 minutes combined for every party to talk to that judge. And it's just going to make things much more complicated and make that protective order last 2 years instead of just 30 days. It is a very, very serious thing. And if you do not take it seriously, you're probably going to get it put on you, meaning you're going to get a ruling that protective order is going to be a 2-year protective order, or it could even be more. And basically your custody case is ruined. You will have no rights as a parent, and you will be stopped at every U.S. border, searched. Anytime you get pulled over by the police, you'll be detained first, and you'll be basically treated like a criminal because the eyes of the court see it that way. So whether or not this protective order is false, whether or not this protective order is something where people lied about, it does not matter to law enforcement. They may even know and suspect that this was all made up and you've been pigeonholed into this as a man and it's all fake, but they have to do their jobs and put you under arrest if you violate it, and it's very easy to violate. So let's get into this. So let's talk about solving the situation if we are in this situation. And it's going to go into a couple different tiers. If you're being threatened with a protective order, what you got to do is you need to seek legal counsel in some form or another. There's a lot of people who are critical about me of always encouraging you to get a lawyer. You can technically do it yourself, but just think, if you screw this up with your one hearing to go over the temporary protective order and you screw that up, you waste time, you misfile something, or you just let the courts be the courts and whoever is making this false claim against you run whatever they want to run, and you ruin that, you basically ruin your custody chances. You can't see your kids for 2 years, and any contact with them, even if they are trying to contact you and you reply, you go to jail. It is really, really bad, and it's, I'd say, even worse for when you are applying for a place to lease or rent or buy a home, or even apply for a loan or apply for a job, or you get pulled over by the police. It is terrible. You want to avoid that. So if any of this is being threatened against you, talk to an attorney that is used to defending protective orders. And I would say used to defending protective orders for men, but it doesn't matter so much as long as they're used to defending it. That means they go in front of a judge, they argue it on a regular basis, and they know the current laws, the current tactics people use to use this as some sort of a custody tactic to, win their cases in horribly unethical ways. So they need to understand that. It is going to be worth every penny. If you can get this thing dismissed or never heard, or start fighting aggressively in your court case, it is worth it. It is worth whatever retainer you are going to pay. And if you do it yourself, You cannot wing anything. You need to get with experts. You need to interview attorneys. You need to pay for consultations or get whatever free ones you can, and not hire just some Joe you find off of the internet, but somebody who is used to dealing with this and taking guys through it. This is something that my group does. If you don't want to go through me, just make sure you hire somebody that is an expert in helping guys navigate through a protective order alone. And again, I only help guys navigate through that if they absolutely cannot afford an attorney and have to do it themselves. But it is very, very difficult. So the next thing we have is you have been served with a temporary protective order. If you have a temporary protective order, you need to get on this immediately. This is very serious. And if you cannot afford a lawyer, I would say sell everything that you own to be able to hire the right attorney, not just any attorney. Watch more of my videos. You need to hire an attorney that understands protective orders and is defending them, just like we talked about in the previous example. And you need to defend it. You need to get it dismissed. If you do not get it dismissed, then it gets signed and it gets put into law, and your whole custody case is ruined. You are fighting an uphill battle, and you go from a $20,000 custody battle to a $90,000 custody battle. To try and defend a protective order is almost impossible, and it gets extremely expensive, and it also ruins your life with the tremendous inconveniences that you'll have, like not being able to talk to your kids and you being seen as a criminal. And if these claims are being falsely made against you, I don't understand why this isn't put in some psychological profile. But people who make false protective orders and basically cry wolf about them and use the system to screw over another parent are always really loud on social media about it, so everybody will know that a judge has basically signed that you are a abuser of some sort, or some violent man or oversexed person or whatever lies that your ex is telling about you. And she gets to say that forever because it is on public record that that is you. That is really, really problematic. You can understand just how terrible and evil that is. So if this starts, I would highly recommend you join my groups. You start working with my teams. You have about 20 days to do it, to construct a case. You're going to have 20 minutes in front of a judge to argue your case, and probably less than that. You're going to have 5 minutes. You don't need to talk about how she's just a lying bad person or whatever it is. You need to actually structure how it is absolutely false that these claims that are being made against you are just absolutely false. You need to prove that. You need to prove it in a way that the court is going to see it. It's not how your mom says it. It's not how your aunt says it. It's not how your uncle that's a lawyer says it. It's not how the lawyer who says what you want to hear says it. It's how it is said over and over again in family court. And you could go down and watch cases to look at it, although protective order cases usually are closed to the public. But if they are open, I would definitely check those things out. You need to learn all of that in the next 20 days or 30 days or whenever your hearing is, because that hearing is the most important thing of your life. The other thing too is you need to drop all communication. You cannot talk to her father, whoever's on that protective order, who's ever on her team. You should not talk to any of her mutual friends or family members that you're used to all hashing things out together. This is now serious. You have to stop all communication, and you need to focus everything you can in the next 20 or 30 days until you have your hearing. And once that happens, hopefully you can get it dismissed, and you need to put everything you have into getting that dismissed, and then you can move on with your court case. What this will look like if the protective order does stay, if they do continue it to a 2-year process, is you will not see your kids for those 2 years. You will have on loan applications, on job applications, on rental applications. People do not want to rent or sell a house to a child abuser. When you cross a U.S. border, you will be detained and put in isolation, and then you'll be interviewed to make sure that you have no children around you. When you get pulled over by any cop or security guard that has the authority to check your record, you will also be detained and treated like a criminal. It's a horrible thing, let alone, I can guarantee you, if these are false, she is going to announce to the entire world the public record of your arrest and so on and all these different things. So you have to stop it. Let alone, you won't be able to see your kids. Your kids are going to be parentally alienated. They're going to be lied to about who you are. They never have the opportunity to understand why this has happened. And all of a sudden, they have a court record that will last for the rest of your life that shows that you are a abuser of some sorts. And this is just a horrible thing. So these next 20 days are really important. You need to listen up. I know I'm sounding like a broken record, but I've had one myself. I've also helped guys beat them, which is very expensive, not through me, but through the court system. I've had guys' lives be ruined by them, and I've had guys get them dismissed. You need to act on this now, and you need help with it. It is very, very serious. So the third man that is going through a protective order situation is somebody who already has it set, meaning their temporary protective order went to a hearing. That hearing was heard, and then the protective order was enforced, meaning for 2 years you do not get to see your kids, any contact, all these sorts of things that I'm talking about. You immediately go to jail, and a new court process is started. And every time that happens, when you violate a protective order, whether you're right or she's crazy or whoever's wrong, but you go to jail, you have to appear in court to be able to argue your case. It gums everything up, it screws everything up. If you have an attorney, it racks up attorney fees. If you represent yourself, it gives you more opportunities to screw up, give a bad impression to that judge, sustain a protective order longer, and so on. So in fighting your protective order, it is really difficult, and the court makes it very, very hard. You're going to have to prove that this was a lie. So what the judge signed, in whatever ways that were unfair or fair or however you want to see it, what that judge has signed has got to be admitted or proven that it was a mistake, and so it does get dismissed, and that is very difficult to do. What happens in this is we have gotten these things dismissed, and most attorneys go through their entire career without ever getting one dismissed. In our groups, we have done that, but still it is difficult for the fathers to see their children because of the reunification process, or whatever that state and county sees as reintegrating the different people. I mean, it gets complicated and horrible, and I could tell you so many stories, and if you really want to hear some of those, you can join my groups and hear it from the guys who are in it, meaning that they get their protective order dismissed. They prove that it was a lie through psychological evaluations from the kids, the mother, them, and so on, psychosexual evaluations as well, which are brutal to have. Some people will take lie detector tests, which are not admissible in court, but oftentimes different psychological evaluators will take them seriously, and so on. This is all very expensive, and then they go to court. It's proven that the father did not do anything, but we now need to start the reunification process. The kids hate the father, they're alienated from the father. The mother can throw curveballs in that, delay things, and if it's the father, mother, mother, father, those things could be reversed. But it gets very, very difficult. It is a horrible thing to be a part of, and it will just cost you a ton of time, money, frustration, and it will move you to the brink of areas that you could never predict as a man. It'll challenge you in the biggest ways. So this is something where, yes, we do need to learn to fight it legally. I don't want to say we quit. I don't ever want to say anybody who has given up in this or run out of money is a bad person. I mean, it's crazy when you think about it. When you move from a $20,000 typical custody case to a $90,000 one to a $600,000 case, who has the means to generate that kind of money in a 2-year period or 3-year period? It's just impossible, but that's the reality of it and how it goes if a protective order does get put into law. It's crazy. So I don't want to say, I totally understand when you need to move on with your life. But what's so important about guys who enter into this whole thing of protective orders and so on is they learn to be better fathers. They learn what actual abuse is. They're forced to go to different anger management or parenting classes, which are usually very good and run by great social workers oftentimes, but there are mixes of these. But the social workers will understand that a lot of this, there's a lot of false allegations out there. They'll give good aid to you. And I know for myself and for many of the men who've been in my groups who are not able to get to see their kids, even after their protective orders were dismissed, what was so important about that is that they were able to become better parents in the long run and better men in the long run. So this may sound like one of the worst things that you want to hear right now, but let's go into this a little bit more. So as you step into this and as you start fighting for your rights, you're going to look at what actual abuse is, what does psychologically affect kids, how bad your kids are actually harmed by this. And just to put in perspective, if you're starting out in this, the pain that you feel is basically, I just want to see my kids. I want to fight for them. I want to do what's best. The mom's lying and these types of things. And all of that is true and is not to be diminished. But if your protective order gets sustained, you're going to go down the rabbit hole of how this psychologically affects a child in how parental alienation will have a lot of the same qualities as physical abuse or sustained physical abuse, sustained sexual abuse, meaning this form of psychological torture and abuse that is done to kids is going to affect them in massive ways. Because of that, it's going to show you that you are going to have to be a strong father when you do come back into your kids' lives. Your kids are going to be uncomfortable around you. They may hate you. They may be disgusted with you. And this is a hard thing. And sadly, I'm one of the few people that have watched men be reunified with their kids from this situation. And it is just a horrible thing. I did it myself. I have many clients who are in the process of doing it. It is very, very difficult. But your role as a father has to be that much more in those areas. So these are things like, how do we reunify? How do we deal with childhood trauma of adolescence that is coming back into our lives that's been lied to about who we are? How do we start showing that we have a solid, focused male perspective on things, a solid, focused emotional range? And these are all things that you probably never had to work on in your life, but I'm going to guarantee you, if you go through the court process on this, if you go through your own trauma on this, it's going to prepare you, and you do it right, and you do it correctly, and you do something like join my groups, get a good therapist, work with a good men's group on this, something like this, you really need to do it. You are going to be changed as a man in some of the best ways. This sounds like something that just is the last thing you want to hear. But I am one of the few men who have experience going through this with just thousands of men online and in my groups and in my courses on what this reunification process looks like, what it does to a man, and how it changes them. I also did it myself. And I can tell you that this process is something that is going to change you at the core. And when you are being changed at the core, you need guidance to go in the right directions. It is imperative to be in a support system for this. It is imperative to get the right psychological help in this. It is imperative to get the right legal help in this. That is not what I replace by any means. I'm telling you, you need to go seek this stuff out. I encourage working with good, talented therapists that are used to working with men. It doesn't matter if it's a male or female therapist. If you're in my groups, I can reference you out to many different people. If you have to pay out of pocket and your insurance doesn't cover it, man, do it. If you are doing the legal road and trying to do it yourself, man, you have to get with people who understand the law and can guide you through it. I would do whatever you can to afford whatever attorney you need and learn how to choose the right attorney in this entire process. I also think that if you do not get around a support system of men who are going through this, who've been through this, and have their finger on the heartbeat of it, you are going to do dumb things. You're going to do things that you may think you are not capable of. This might just be texting in a high pressure situation, but it also might be thinking that you want to attack or reach out against society or, the legal system or all these different things. Look, I get that the legal system is absolutely screwed. It screws over men all day long, but I want you to win your case. And in order to win your case, you need to focus on your case. You do need to not focus on society. I get it. In some form of coping, you need to look at how screwed up it is. I'll sit there and talk about it with you. But you need to come down and focus on your case to win your case, to either stop your protective order from moving forward, or you need to learn how to defend it if it's going in front of a judge. I mean, you've got to get this thing dismissed. And if you have it put on you, you need to start living in a different way because your kids are going to need it when they reintegrate with you. All right, hope this video is helpful. You can look at my community down below. It's the Rising Man community. I also have upper tier groups so you can work with me directly, as well as my legal assistants to help guide you through the case. And for complicated cases, it's something that's really helpful. Check out the links for that down below. And if you have any questions, shoot me an email, leave a comment, any stuff like that. I'm a hands-on coach. I'm somebody that cares deeply about my clients, and I work pretty much 24/7 to help men in these situations. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you guys soon.